Aristotle's engagement with Plato's thought was more than a mere student-teacher relationship, it was an epic intellectual apprenticeship that combined admiration, challenge, and eventual transformation of the philosophical landscape. Arriving at Plato's academy in Athens at the tender age of 17, Aristotle entered a world of unparalleled intellectual rigor. He was immersed in a culture of relentless questioning, where dialogue spanned the nature of reality, ethics, and knowledge itself. For nearly 20 years, he absorbed Plato's methods, debated tirelessly with peers, and pondered the deepest questions of existence, engaging directly with one of history's most formidable thinkers. Yet, as much as he revered his teacher, Aristotle's mind was restless, probing for inconsistencies and exploring paths Plato's philosophy never traversed. His prolonged study, far from creating blind discipleship, nurtured a critical perspective that would eventually redirect the trajectory of Western thought. Plato's metaphysics envisioned a world in which every tangible object was a shadow of an eternal, perfect form. The forms, be they beauty, justice, or goodness, were immutable, existing in a realm beyond ordinary perception. Plato's world was one of transcendence, where the material was always subordinate to the ideal. Aristotle recognized the elegance and intellectual audacity of this vision but found it insufficient to account for the living, breathing world he observed. He insisted that essence and matter were inseparable, that hoarseness, for instance, could not exist independently in a metaphysical sky but was manifest in the particular horses trotting across the plains, in their anatomy, behavior, and life cycle. This philosophical pivot, shifting attention from abstract universals to tangible particulars, was radical. It reoriented inquiry from speculative reasoning toward empirical investigation, laying the groundwork for disciplines as diverse as biology, physics, logic, and political science. The divergence between Plato and Aristotle was never personal animosity. Aristotle's respect for Plato remained profound. He consistently referred to him as a friend and mentor, acknowledging the magnitude of Plato's intellect. Yet, reverence did not require acquiescence. Aristotle challenged the notion that the highest truths existed apart from sensory experience. To him, knowledge required observation, experimentation, and the careful categorization of phenomena. He became, in effect, the first systematic natural scientist, meticulously studying the anatomy of animals, recording behavioral patterns, and dissecting specimens to understand life in its material forms. Where Plato's philosophy often soared into the abstract and the ideal, Aristotle's grounded methodology embraced the messiness of reality. Insisting that understanding could only grow from the foundation of what was directly perceivable, this empirical orientation extended beyond metaphysics into ethics, politics, and society. Plato's vision of a perfectly ordered state governed by philosopher-kings remained largely theoretical, a utopia of reason. Aristotle, by contrast, approached political philosophy as a study of human communities as they actually existed, with all their imperfections, rivalries, and practical constraints. His ethical theory emphasized the cultivation of virtue through habitual action, advocating a balanced, moderate life accessible to ordinary individuals rather than the pursuit of abstract perfection. Ethics, in Aristotle's hands, became a practical art of living, rooted in the tangible realities of human experience rather than the contemplation of transcendent ideals. The end of Plato's life marked a turning point. Aristotle, despite his brilliance and loyalty, was overlooked for leadership of the academy, likely because his views had diverged too far from the Platonic core. Undeterred, he departed Athens, traveled extensively, and conducted independent research before establishing his own institution, the Lyceum. Here, Aristotle innovated both in pedagogy and methodology, walking with his students as he taught, hence the term peripatetic, and producing works that would influence nearly every intellectual domain for centuries. His investigations were encyclopedic, encompassing logic, ethics, politics, natural science, and the arts, blending theoretical rigor with empirical observation in ways that Plato had never envisioned. The philosophical tension between Plato and Aristotle crystallizes a deeper dialectic within Western thought, the interplay between idealism and empiricism, between the dream of perfect forms and the investigation of lived reality. Plato remains the visionary who sought eternal truths beyond the senses, inspiring generations to look upward and beyond the material. Aristotle embodies the meticulous observer, the systematizer of knowledge, whose methods prefigured the scientific revolution and modern analytic philosophy. Together, they constitute a dialogue that transcends time, one offering a lens of perfection, the other of substance, one reaching for the eternal, the other meticulously charting the temporal and the concrete. Modern thought leans heavily on Aristotle's empirical methods, yet Plato's ideals continue to stir the imagination, reminding us that the pursuit of ultimate meaning cannot be fully contained by observation alone. Aristotle did not abandon Plato, he completed him. By critically examining the theory of forms and anchoring philosophy in the empirical world, he transformed 2 decades of intense study into a foundation for an enduring intellectual legacy. His years at the academy forged a thinker capable of challenging orthodoxy while maintaining reverence for its insights, producing a system of thought that would dominate discourse for 2 millennia. The relationship between teacher and student, admiration and critique, ideal and reality, continues to echo through the corridors of philosophy. In questioning, refining, and expanding Plato's vision, Aristotle ensured that the pursuit of knowledge would never be confined to a single dimension but would forever oscillate between the ethereal and the tangible, the abstract and the observed, the imagined and the real.